Swimming like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
And you are listening to the Seattle Shrimp Tank, streaming to you live on Facebook. You can catch us every other week on Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Pacific time from our virtual studio here on Facebook. Until we resume broadcasting in our physical studio, I'm Brad Berger, along with my esteemed co-host Dan Whedon. You can always catch a replay of the podcast at shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle, and now through iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. And don't forget, you can still subscribe to our podcast on iTunes so you never miss an episode, or wherever you download your streaming podcasts. If you are subscribed, please rate our podcast so your feedback helps us grow and improve. Our guests for today's podcast are Ray and Diane Donahue with Peninsula Paint Company. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Dan, how you doing? You super cash today.
I'm a little cash, and there's a reason for that. I am wearing a Rotary shirt here. As you can see, if you're listening to the podcast, this is bad radio. I understand that. But Ray, as you're going to hear, is our president nominee. That means he's not the next president, but the president after of my Rotary Club. And our Rotary gear, as you can see right here, I'm modeling for everybody, is our club's fundraiser in perpetuity. We actually make these and sell them worldwide starting like now. So anybody who's a Rotarian, if you're listening to this, you're Rotarian or not, you want some Rotary swag, some Rotary gear, 1905gear.com. So that's our Rotary Club's big fundraiser. So I wanted to wear it today, especially since Ray and Diane are on the show.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
And I'm wearing the hat because I got a haircut that looks good on everything but Zoom. So that's why the hat's on. But I got to tell you, before we move on to talk paint, something funny happened today that I saw that I just thought I'd share because, Brad, I don't know if you saw this, but did you ever in your life think that in a court of law, an attorney would utter the words to a judge, "I'm not a cat"? Did you hear about this?
No, I can honestly tell you I've had my head down pedaling pretty hard.
Okay, Ray and Diane, have you heard about this one?
No.
So you got to go to YouTube. It's all over the place. There was a Zoom virtual, I don't know if it was an arbitration, it was a hearing. It was a Zoom hearing. You had the judge and you had two attorneys. One of the attorneys, apparently, I don't know if it was his kid or somebody, put on the cat filter. So he's talking like a cat. and he can't get it off. He's trying to get his assistant to help him. And so there's this running dialogue, and the judge is telling him, you look like a cat. You've got this cat face on. And he says, I know, my assistant. And the end, it's like a punchline. It was like perfect. At the end, the attorney says to the judge, "I'm really not a cat." Like the judge didn't know that. And I thought, here we are in 2021 in maybe the highest, ever technological space we've been in. And attorneys are showing up to hearings in cat filters and having to explain that they're not a cat. And so when I heard that Ray and Diane's cat make an appearance, I thought I had to bring this up. Ray, you might have to tell us that you're not a cat. By the way, so thank you for indulging me. I just thought that was so funny. Here's the deal though, Brad. What's not funny is I've known Ray and Diane for an awful long time. We first originally met when our daughters were all going to school at about the same time. In fact, I think Mindy and Carrie are the same age, if I remember, class of 2007, correct? Yep. So they're the same age. We probably saw each other many times on ball fields and courts and all of that. And now Ray is in my Rotary Club too, as I mentioned. So I've had a long knowledge and friendship with the Donahues. I'm so excited we get to talk about a real, true entrepreneurial family business. So Brad, why don't you tell us a little bit more about their bio?
You bet. Well, Ray and Diane Donahue know their paint. The West Sound couple, who call Kingston, Washington home, own 5 paint stores. Their stores range from Gig Harbor to Bainbridge Island under the moniker of Peninsula Paint Company. Their firm has 27 employees, including Ray and Diane, and they have an exclusive sole source relationship with Benjamin Moore and Company. The Donahues built their small chain through a few timely mergers and acquisitions and a laser sharp focus on their customer base. Ray has been quoted saying, "We're the premier paint destination on the peninsula." As a bit of history, Ray and Diane started their business in 2004 in partnership with friends. Together, they purchased part of a small chain of independent paint stores ran by a Seattle-based subsidiary of Benjamin Moore. And at the time, they also acquired stores in Paulsbo, Port Townsend, and Sequim, lovely place, that were being run as Lovell Paint, I think it's, and decorating out of Seattle, and then formed Peninsula Paint. The Donahues have made their business and marriage work by dividing and conquering, and we heard a little bit about that pre-show. Ray handles the sales and marketing aspects of their company, while Diane focuses on the operations end. Ray and Diane have not hesitated to give back. The company is a member of most Kitsap Chambers of Commerce, and they annually support any number of fundraising galas, as well as donating paint to numerous nonprofits. We're very excited to have you both on our show today, the Seattle Shrimp Tank. Welcome, Ray and Diane.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let me lead off with just a question that seems to be one of those that has drawn more importance over the last year. How's the paint business? How are things going? It's been a almost full 12 months of just upheaval. How are things going in the paint business?
It's been booming. We came off a record year, as I think most construction and home improvement kind of sector has. We had a rough time in April, May. We were down to reduced our hours and curbside pickup. We're down to 2 people in each store, but and sales were off quite a bit. But we've rebounded and made all that back and then some. So it's been a really robust year and been very interesting. Trying to stay the course with doing the COVID thing, and also this year's starting off gangbusters. Had a great January.
Yeah, we feel fortunate to be in the industry we are, because you see so many other businesses struggling, restaurant and hospitality. So yeah, I feel very fortunate to be where we're at right now.
People are sitting home and they want to paint.
Well, I was going to ask I was going to ask the question. We probably all have our own theories, right, as to why you've had such a successful year. But what do you attribute it to?
Well, it was that. I mean, I think getting the contractors back to work. It was just a few months last spring when construction was down that really hurt. But we were doing a lot of retail business. But once the contractors got back up and running, things are back to kind of normal. And then there's a lot of people still at home and maintaining their houses. And so it's been good.
So let me ask this, because it brings it up to a question that I have. My entire inside of my house is from your store. You're literally down the street from me because we knew each other. Right. I just am wondering, on the retail versus wholesale part of your business, how is that broken up? And have you seen an increase in, like, say, walk-in retail versus, especially during that time when the contractors were maybe just starting to get back to work?
Right.
Well, we have a really good mix. We've always had a good, customer base mix of contractor retail. And I think that was actually one of our focuses when we bought the business, that we needed to have both sides. We have to have good contractor base, and we had to have good retail base. And so many of the other stores, since I've been in the industry, I think in the 90s and early 2000s, everybody wanted the contractor business, and I was kind of, they were shoving everybody to the boxes, and I was still kind of the, mindset of, where's Mrs. Smith supposed to go? And, so we wanted to have, a nice store that, the retail public can still come to and get a good experience. And so our mix has been very, solid, I think, and still remains
About 60,
60,
40, 60 retail.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I was thinking that people are, sitting around their house looking at those four walls saying, man, those are dirty. It's
Time for a change.
time for a change or time for a refresh, that's for sure. I think that the home improvement, anything, has benefited from people being at home, realizing that, boy, if I'm going to spend this much time here, I probably need to spruce it up a little bit.
Exactly.
So that decision to diversify your business, obviously that was a key play there.
Yeah, I've been in paint for 30 or 40 years, and in one side or another. And when I was a sales rep, we always used to laugh. Kind of the times are either good or they were better, because you kind of get mostly in recession. The retail builds, and then when times are booming, then the contractor sales are booming.
Sure.
So it's always been a good industry, even though we've had some struggles during the recession, but we made it through.
Sure.
Adjustments. But.
So I know that do you mind if I ask another question, Dan?
No, I was holding on for you to go. I figured it was your turn.
Yeah. So the question that I've got for you guys is, how, just talk us through as a business owner, because I'm sure a lot of business owners, either had similar circumstances, maybe in it, or they want to adequately prepare if this were to ever happen again. But how did you guys kind of handle the COVID lockdown and having to make adjustments to, I'll guess, safety measures that were instituted by, our local authorities? What impact did that play on your employees, and how many you were able to retain, or adjustments you had to make? Just interested to learn a little bit more about that.
Yeah. At the beginning, we were really like, hey, well, we've got to plan for the worst. And it was kind of a natural attrition of employees. Some were very afraid to be there. Some were fine. And so it actually ended up, when deciding to go less hours and curbside, the employees that were okay, if we end up with 2 employees per store, and other employees that just were more fearful of COVID, and slowly but surely, as business came back, so did employees. So it was hard for deciding what was best, but some of it kind of was naturally driven, I guess. So it seemed to work. And then I think when we looked back too, is like, then you have your own personal fear, but you're still having to make these decisions.
Sure.
For your company. So that was it was a bit stressful, but
my daughter Michelle and I stepped up. Pretty much our full crew in Port Townsend did not, for whatever reason, a lot of them were living with elderly people, parents and grandparents, did not want to come to work. So we pretty much lost our staff up there for 5 or 6 weeks. And so,
Wow.
as an entrepreneur, you tighten your belt. So I was commuting to Port Townsend with my daughter Michelle, and we covered that store for I think 5 weeks. And then and that was good. It was good for me. It was good to it kind of gets me back in the trenches, seeing the customer base that I hadn't seen in a long time, and it was it was kind of fun. It was something different for me.
So you mentioned, Ray, that your daughter, is she working in the business with you?
Yes. Yeah.
So
Michelle has been with us about 6 or 7 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
she's managing our Salisbury store at the moment.
And so, true family business. I want to ask this, and we'll get away a little bit from COVID. Let me ask you this. We heard in the bio that Diane is operations, Ray, your sales.
More administrative, I guess.
Yeah, I'm sorry, say that again.
I'm more on the administrative side.
There's a lot of
Right. Okay. But two different specific roles. And in a lot of organizations, those two roles can come to loggerheads at times sometimes because they're, we know that, hey, we want to sell, we want to market, we want to do all of this, and somebody's looking at the money. In a family situation, husband, wife, talk a little bit about some of the challenges and opportunities that come with that.
Well, Diane's, of course, from the accounting side, and I'm from the sales side.
Right.
So I think that's where we've been successful when we talk about things. It's she's more realistic and reasonable, or she sets very reasonable, calculated goals that are to make our company successful, and I'm shooting for the pie in the sky, and somewhere we end up in the middle somewhere.
Right.
I have to, we compromise, but she's doing the real numbers to keep us afloat, and I'm kind of shooting a little higher. It's kind of.
And if we have tread on each other's space, we definitely feel it. We wait a second.
So that's got to happen once in a while, and so you have those conversations.
Yeah.
The stay in your lane conversation.
Yeah.
So this seems like an appropriate place to just ask this question. I know we're going to have to go to commercial break here in a moment, but so are you guys like independent owners that or are you consider to be franchises of Benjamin Moore?
Benjamin Moore only goes to market with independent dealers.
Right.
And
so you've got an exclusive agreement with them.
Not even exclusive agreement. So let's just say we're incentivized.
Okay. So if you wanted to carry XYZ brand of paint, you could.
And many do, but
okay.
It's sort of, you climb the ladder, you kind of, as they say, we drank the Kool-Aid. We really like, the program. They've been, a great company to be in bed with, and we decided not to bring in other lines that would just muddy the waters.
And then I promise this is my last question, but do they kind of protect your territory as well? Or because I know that, I don't think you can buy Benjamin Moore paint in the big box stores, right? It's only through independent dealers.
Only through independent.
Correct. Yeah.
So are they pretty good to work with regard to kind of protecting your ability? Because I think that's always, a key element when you're involved with a company that you're distributing their product.
Yes, they have been. There's been some issues, recently that a little more, but they're still not in the big boxes, There are some Ace stores that have them now, but the Aces, are independently owned. So
yep.
So it's within their realm.
Sure.
But so far that's it works out. Our sales are going up. So, and they do need to be successful also, and so for the most part, they have been pretty protective. And it's kind of fun because between Washington and Oregon, there's specific families that kind of own, and we're all good. The Myers and the Powells and the Mallorys, and it's kind of like when we go away to trade shows, we all hang out together, and it's so Benjamin Moore it's a neat family.
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, talk about keeping it in the family. We've got to keep it in the family with our sponsors. So we're going to take a short break to hear from our sponsors. And when we come back with our guests, Ray and Diane Donahue with Peninsula Paint Company, for our Hot or Not section of the show, we're going to find out what they think about do-it-yourself painting. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Seattle Shrimp Tank.
The Seattle Shrimp Tank is brought to you by ideallife360.com. What would it be like to be in the best shape of your life, both physically and mentally, every day for the rest of your life? Have awesome relationships with the people you care about most. Never having to worry about money again. What would it be like if you received a letter out of the blue and suddenly discovered you had 20 more years to live than you ever imagined? What would you do with those extra years of your life? How many lives would you touch? What kind of legacy would you leave behind? What changes would you make today knowing you had 20 more years in your future? What big, new challenges would you take on? What would be next? Visit www.ideallife360.com, or you can call LIFE 360 to discover how to rethink, redefine, and reinvent the best years of your life.
Right?
Well, welcome back to the Seattle Shrimp Tank from our virtual studio, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business thought leaders in Seattle and the greater Puget Sound area. I am Brad Berger, along with my esteemed co-host Dan Wheaton. Remember, you can always catch a replay of the podcast at shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or catch us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you stream your podcasts. For our next segment, Hot or Not.
Hot or Not, and Hot or Not is sponsored. I got to get that mute button going. That Hot or Not is sponsored by our shrimp peeler sponsor, Port Ludlow Resort. Thank you to them. Ray and Diane, Hot or Not is where Brad and I pepper you with some questions about business, about life, about entrepreneurship. Could be anything. You're going to tell us if the concept is hot or not, and then why. And at the end, you win absolutely nothing. I mentioned DIY. So hot or not, and you guys can answer this as a team, or you can argue about it, and Diane will win anyway. I understand that. Hot or not, do-it-yourself painting.
Hot. Just do it.
Just
Painting.
Oh,
We actually, you always fight against the HGTV kind of shows that show everything done in like half an hour.
Done in half an hour for a tenth of the real cost.
Most of painting is all the prep work. Painting's easy. It's all the prep.
Well, I was going to make the prep work. Hot or not prep work. You got to do it, but that's like the worst part, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah,
It is.
And a lot of people don't want to do that part of it.
But it
So
makes
do you find on the retail side, people come in, they buy the paint gets all mixed up, they go home, and then they got to come back because they realize they didn't get all the prep stuff. Did that ever happen?
Yeah. Well, we try and walk them through it a little bit so that they don't do that. So that they end up having everything they need. Try not to be too hard a salesman, but it's just like making sure that they have what to get the job done.
A little bit harder on the stain side. People don't like the prep.
Well, as I shared with you before we got on the air, I just finished a project over in Eastern Washington. It's completely inside and out, all Benjamin Moore paint, but I am also glad to tell you I didn't pick up a single paintbrush because I do not have, what I discovered is I simply do not have the patience. And I watched those guys that did all of the prep, and thank God that there are people out there that do that, because you're right. I mean, if it's prepared well, it's like butter. And if it's, if it's not done well, you can tell. So anyway, so here's a hot or not, mauve.
Not. What is mauve?
Right. Well, I think it was really popular in maybe the transition from the 70s or 80s, or maybe in the 80s, right? Purplish rose, maybe color.
No good, right? Mauve is no good. Well, talk a little bit about the paint colors as it used to be, and Brad's shaking his head. I think we have the same thing in mind. I mean, I remember as a kid, like it seemed like 40 years ago, you had the Crayolas, you knew what was yellow and blue and red and all of that. There are so many colors now. And so how hard is that for you, or is it hard at all?
It is hard. I didn't realize until we went to paint our own house, even being in the industry, it's like, I kept doing test colors on the outside of the house, and I said, oh, this is it. And I go home and brush it out. And I was like, oh, no way. So it is difficult. And I do think that the designers that we work with, they have an eye. I'm not going to say I know color like they know color, and we like to work in tandem with the designers. And a lot of times they'll pull people out of their beige box. A lot of people go with the safe colors, and a lot of the Northwest colors are just grays and beiges. But in talking with a designer, you'll get that pop. You'll get those extra things that I would never consider, never even think of. Wouldn't even be in my realm of possibilities, and they'll pull you out. So
What shocks me is the number of whites there are.
yeah,
We have a whole brochure on them.
we have 130 whites.
The whole
130
How many?
whites. 130 whites.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I was so glad when we walked in our garage and it was like, yep, this is it. So paint the rest of the house this. That was the easy part. So painting exterior home, you mentioned that, Ray, and that's kind of something that's interesting because we had several iterations of samples and paints and trying to pick that out. But I just curious if you're finding that is there a trend in the Northwest in particular, moving away from, like you say, a lot of what I'll refer to as earth tones?
No, I think we're still there, but some of they're richer maybe. But no, I think we're still in the earth tones, and Benjamin Moore also says that we sell more coffee colors up here. So it's latte, mochas, and the kind of chocolates and creams and are more popular in the Northwest than they are in other places. So around the country, you'll find different color palettes. Obviously,
Sure.
We're certainly not like Florida, but so you'll find different palettes all over the place. But we're still beige.
Yeah.
We're painting our house blue.
Well, or cyan or something else like that, right? Or is it just blue? Is it real blue? There's a lot of blue. If there's 130 whites, there's got to be a lot of blues.
Yeah, there are.
So let me ask you a little bit more, kind of from your entrepreneurial journey. You bought the business in 2004. You've now grown to 5 stores. Even though they're kind of somewhat close, they're also not necessarily close. There's a little distance between all of them. What's the challenge that you found as you've grown, as you went from, I think you had 1 in the beginning maybe, or I don't know if there was a couple, but you started small and now you're at 5. What are some of the challenges along the way as you're growing, you're adding locations, you're increasing employees? What are some of those challenges?
We always call it riding the ship. So you bring your attention over here and this maybe is going down. So you're always feel like you're balancing your ship, I guess. And
the clown in the circus trying to keep the plates all spinning, running back and forth, get the one going, just trying to get them all going at the same time. And then each market, even though we're all here on the Kitsap Peninsula, Levitt Peninsula, but each store is unique and a little different.
Yeah.
I was as a sales rep in the paint industry for years, and to me, it was paint store is a paint store is a paint store. It's like, and now that we're in it, they're not. Every Gig Harbor is different than Bainbridge, and Bainbridge is different than Port Townsend, and Port Townsend is different than Fallsville.
yeah,
They all have their unique personalities and communities, and so they are different, even as far as the employees go too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are some, for those of us that are kind of from this area, but of course I don't hang out much on the Kitsap or Olympic Peninsula anymore, but have been there many times. But what are some of those characteristics that you find different about those communities, and how as business owners do you address that?
Well, I think we're all it's probably a little more laid back than King County. Which is,
Yeah.
one of the reasons we moved over here 20 years ago.
Sure.
And I think finding I'll just say finding employees that want to work hard, and a lot of times they want to work part-time. They want to work Monday through Thursday from maybe 8 to 2. It's like, well, that doesn't work.
I think just community-wise, you have to say a Bainbridge or Gig Harbor, you might do more advertising with designers, or because they have more of the contractors working for them. And Port Townsend, they got the older homes, so you've got to cater to maybe the making sure the surface is ready to paint, because you've got the older homes and so each community is just a little bit different. Paulsbo's just keeps growing. So the volume in, Paulsbo's our largest store. And Winslow's our second, Bainbridge is the second. So just kind of, they're just all a little bit different. So you have to cater a little bit to maybe the contractors or the homeowners or so.
One of the things in our business too is that we typically don't do a lot of new construction. We will if it's custom, and we do it designers and architects, kind of the higher end. But when a housing development goes in some of these markets, which we're all growing now, we don't get that new construction, and we know where we fit, and that's not it.
Yeah,
that's
okay.
The lowest. We call them blow and go, and
Yep.
And but we'll be repainting them within probably 2 years. So
sure. Well, I was just going to say, because the caliber, right, of the paint is pretty different, I would assume.
Yeah. So we know where our niche is or where our market is, and we know it's not new construction, but we're happy to see those houses go up.
Yeah.
So in the process of marketing your business, then, you're talking about your Ray, sales and marketing, and this is still a relationship business, I'm sure, on that end. What things do you focus on when you are trying to get that wholesale business? And then at the same time, what do you have to do in today's world to advance your retail business?
Well, we try and we've tried to maintain our relationship with our contractors.
Yep.
Now, it is getting more and more competitive out there as we get some more national companies coming in. But we've had some of the same contractors for not 20 years, we haven't been there, but 15 years, a long time, and they've been solid and steady, and we're growing. We have some of the biggest contractors in the area dealing with us, and price, we've never really, I'll say, sold on price, but we've kind of maintained that quality avenue, and but we can be competitive. So one of the things we do, we belong to a group of independent paint dealers called All Pro, and All Pro is a cooperative group. There's about 250 of us across the country that represent about 2,000 paint stores. So in effect, we're treated like a chain when we're dealing with the manufacturers, and we can buy direct from just about anybody. And so we have to leverage that as far as being competitive with the contractors. And then we just do a regular advertising for the homeowners. We're still pretty, do a lot of online. We're building the social media aspect of it. We still advertise in the newspapers. And,
West Sound, obviously.
Yeah, and you know what? I think we have time before our break here. No, we're going to do it when we come back from our break, because we're going to talk about the magazine article that just came up. But we do need to take that break first. And when we come back, first of all, we're going to take a short break to hear from our sponsors. And then when we come back with our guests, Ray and Diane Donahue with Peninsula Paint Company, for our famous Plead the Fifth section of the show, I'm personally going to ask Diane about number 1 or number 2. I'll walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Seattle Shrimp Tank.
Seattle Shrimp Tank is brought to you by Whedon Unleashed. As a business owner, you do not have a professional life and a personal life. You have a life, and that life is full of opportunities and obstacles. Your business is a vehicle to fuel your life. If you run out of fuel because of a crisis, then your entire lifestyle is affected. Dan Whedon works with small and medium-sized business owners to ensure that no calamity is fatal. Dan focuses on accelerating business growth while at the same time planning and implementing strategies on preventing, mitigating, and recovering from those obstacles of business and life. Through Dan's consulting work and his partnership with First Underwriters Insurance to finance your risk, he'll make sure that with confidence, you will unleash the value of your business and lifestyle. To get a complimentary review of your situation, call Dan at 360-271-1592 or email him at dan@danwhedon.com. Tell Dan you heard him on the Seattle Shrimp Tank and receive 20% discount on any work you agree to. Be unleashed and be well.
Welcome back to the Seattle Shrimp Tank from our virtual studio, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business thought leaders in Seattle and the greater Puget Sound area. I'm Brad Berger, along with my esteemed co-host Dan Whedon, and you can always catch a replay of the podcast at shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle. Boy, I'm having trouble with that today. Don't forget to subscribe our podcast on iTunes or catch us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. For our next segment, Plead the Fifth.
I'll let you off the hook, Brad. I'll take over from here. Our Plead the Fifth section is sponsored by Port Ludlow Resort, our shrimp peeler sponsor. Ray and Diane, we're going to talk Plead the Fifth. And here's how it works. We're going to ask you some more questions, maybe make them a little bit tougher. And you get to plead the fifth, but only once. After that, and this is a joint number one, you can't each plead the fifth. But I'm going to start. I'm going to start with Diane in what appears to be a little bit of an inside joke. I just want to know, Diane, plead the fifth. Is it better to be number one or number two?
Well, if you watch The Big Bang Theory, it's one, and that's why I say Whedon when I'm number two at High Spirits in the Pines, and you're one. But that's probably not what you're referring to.
Oh, it's exactly what I was referring to. And Brad, and just to give you, and Ray's chuckling, if you remember, we had Peter Crabtree on the show pre-COVID, and they have a wonderful membership program, which I don't know, I think I stumbled into right as he was making it up. And let's just say that I am member number one. And Diane, whose daughter is married to Peter,
is the mother-in-law.
Yes. She ended up being number two, and she has not let me forget it. I'm glad that we're not in the studio right now.
Or Peter.
That is awesome. So here's a great plead the fifth, since we're talking about paint and colors and the fact that you mentioned you're going to paint the outside of your house. What is the ugliest color you have ever seen your product applied to a home, and then is it still out there?
Oh boy.
Yellow up on here, the high school or Knoll Road. Remember there was that yellow, bright yellow. If it's still there, I'm not sure.
Well, actually, I would say the one that another bright yellow is that there's that old house that was next to actually the Sons of Norway, Dan, if you remember that. An old house, right by Paul's Bohemian. And I think it just recently got painted.
Right.
But it was a bright gold yellow that just stood out like a sore thumb.
Yellows can get out of control.
Yeah, yellows can get very out of control.
So I'm going to piggyback. That was a great question, Brad. I'm going to piggyback on that. And of course, you don't have to say names or anything, but let's move to the inside. Have you ever walked in, when we could walk into other people's houses, have you ever walked into a house and go, oh, we can help you with that? What are there yellows in there too? What's the culprit on the inside?
Well, I'd say it was my sister's house.
Oh, way to dive into plead the fifth. I love that. I'm not even a very good attorney, and he sold her out.
Yeah, because she had, lives in Seattle, and we're over here, but she painted like an accent wall around her fireplace, and I think it was Bear, Home Depot red, just a dark burgundy red. And she put a couple coats on, but you can still see through it everywhere. But she goes, I'm not putting another coat. So it was like you could see the cut-ins and see it was a mess. I was tempted to just go redo it for her. But
you said I'm in the paint business, right?
I was there for several years.
That's probably a new series you guys could start, which is accent walls gone wild. Because it's like, why stop with one accent wall, right?
For sponge paint, you see somebody who's attempted to sponge paint a wall. That was popular quite a while ago, but
Sure.
you'd walk in, oh, did you do that yourself?
Because it sure looks like it.
Yeah.
So we always like to ask this question, and that's, what is your culinary? So obviously you've got some family members close by who are involved in the culinary business. So for both of you, what is your culinary guilty pleasure?
Probably lasagna.
That's for both of you. Are you going with that, Diane?
Well, I guess for me, I can't eat it very often, but like a great baked burger and fries. Try and stay away from it a little bit, but a good burger and yeah.
All right, so we're gonna, and I know where you can get a good burger, by the way. I know where you can get one.
We love food in general, so
We eat everything.
yeah.
So we have one that's for each of you. Same question, but I'm sure going to have different answers. This is another Shrimp Tank podcast.
I hope so.
Plead the fifth favorite. So I'll throw it out to you, and Ray, you're going to have to answer first. Diane will think about it a little bit more. Plead the fifth. Who's your celebrity crush?
Oh.
I have to go back. Yeah, Heather Locklear.
All right, I'll go with the Heather Locklear. Yeah, that's really good. In fact, I think I had a Heather Locklear poster at some point in time. Yeah.
The past Heather Locklear, though, she's gone down a little bit. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. I'm thinking 80s Heather Locklear. That's what you okay. All right, that's a good call right there. Diane, how about you?
George Clooney.
Oh, there you go.
All right.
George Clooney. That didn't take as long. That was.
Well, she laughed right away. I mean, she had her answer a long time ago. I mean, that was like a split second after you asked the question, Dan.
Yeah.
I think Diane's had that one for a while, queued up, ready to go. Right. So one of the things that we also like to ask is, since we like to talk about entrepreneurs, and you told a little bit of your story, which you're welcome to do, because I'd love to hear, and I'm sure our audience would too, is how you became an entrepreneur. But let's just roll back and say you were 22 years old today. What would you be looking to do as a career?
You wanted to be an architect.
I started off, I wanted to be an architect, and even got into, took pretty much a year of college and got into structural engineering and kind of into the drawing aspect, and this was before CAD. And
right.
So that was and I remember the instructor coming around in the spring, and he was like, well, because we were pretty much spending 8 hours at a desk. And he goes, well, this is kind of what the office atmosphere is kind of like. And it's like, this is kind of, and I was like, yeah, that's not for me. So I couldn't sit at a desk for 8 hours a day. I have to be out and about and doing things. And so that was where at 22, I wanted to be in architecture and construction, I guess.
Well, Ray, we have at least something in common. I wasn't 22. I was probably about 12, and I thought I was going to be an architect till I did not do well in drafting class. And yes, that was way, way, way before even computers.
Yeah. Learn how to sharpen a pencil.
Yes.
Hey, listen, one last question before we head out, because I promised we want to talk a little bit about the new article, the magazine article about you, and where people can find that.
Yeah, so it's through West Sound Home and Garden, or just West Sound now. We always say that Dee Copla's better at marketing us than we are. And it was her idea to do the article on us, which we really appreciate. And
we've been
yeah.
advertising with them for about 10 years, 12 years, and it's been a great magazine. And every January, they come out with kind of the color of the year feature where it's a lot of designers and paint companies paint colors of the year. So it's a great venue for us. Anyway.
Yeah,
Awesome.
seems, yeah, match up with kind of our, message, and, it's such a nice magazine.
Yeah, West Sound Home and Garden, and we have that on PeninsulaPaintCo.com.
Well, awesome. Well, Ray and Diane, we want to thank you so much for coming on our program today. For our listeners that want to get in touch with you or learn more about your company, how do they get more information?
PeninsulaPaintCo.com is our web address. There's a lot of good things on BenjaminMoore.com also for so people can play with colors and room, and then you can actually buy online now and the orders come to the store. So that's another way. And our office is in the Paulsbo store. So
Awesome.
we're there most of the time.
Great. Well, our next show from our virtual studio will be on Wednesday, February 24th, 2021, where our guest will be Nick Hughes with Founders Media Live. Make sure you check out all the replays on shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle, as well as on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, or wherever you stream your podcasts. And remember, to become a shark, we all start out as shrimps.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond, and the